Okay, so you should be able to see the Dynamics CRM instance, and I'm going to quickly walk through each of the 3 use cases for you. First of all, we're going to talk about batch processing. We've got a data set here that's got data that is from all around the world. We've got missing data in some of the fields. We've got countries that aren't standardized properly, missing postcodes, capitalization issues, and in fact, I'm going to focus on a couple of records for us to pay attention to. Here's 2 records. Dynamics says that the full name on this first record is Bird. It says the full name on the second record is Tony Bird. They have the same address or street information. One's missing a city, one's missing a postcode. We've got some casing issues. So you can look at these and you can say, you know, potentially they're matches for each other. But we'd like to clean that data up and run a Trillium process to really investigate whether or not these records should be matches or not, and then ultimately merge the data. If we look at this first record, the reason that Dynamics says that the full name is Bird is because the user erroneously put Anthony in the middle name field. So that's something that we can track and look at that Trillium will automatically correct and say, you know what, Anthony's probably the first name since there isn't even a first name on this record. Likewise, if we go and take a look at the Tony Bird record, whoops, let me bring that back up. I just want to point out as well that this record has an activity on it. And this is important for you to pay attention to because as you merge data, you want to make sure that activities, sales orders, opportunities, whatever you may have attached to contacts, accounts, leads, is all merged together in a resulting golden record. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the Trillium Batch UI, and this is definitely something that an administrator would use. So a system administrator would build a job through this UI. They would enter in their login credentials and test that out, and then they would configure a query. We ship several out-of-the-box queries to tell you, to give you the capability to build jobs very quickly. Cleanse and match all contacts, all accounts, all leads. This particular one is to cleanse and match all of my contact data. So I can make sure that the configuration is saved, and I'll go ahead and click Run. And what that's going to do is that's going to go out to my CRM system, and it's going to trigger an update on all the records that met my query criteria. In this case, it was all records in the contact entity. And as those data records are updated, as the process flow showed in the slides, it is going to cleanse, match, standardize, case, all of that particular data. Now, if we go back over to CRM, it looks like the job's almost done. We'll give it another couple of seconds here. There we go. So it looks like job finished. So let's go back over to CRM, and I'm going to refresh this view. And you'll notice that I've got things like latitude and longitude on most of my records. My countries are standardized. I've got proper postcodes where possible. I also have some other information that we append telling you how well we think the address is formatted. The address was validated and or corrected. This one failed on a street name. This one failed on a city, town, state, or province level. So all of that information is provided back to you. And if I go in and search for our records that we were paying attention to, now we see that the first record that was just Bird for the full name now says Anthony, and if I click on that, you'll notice that Trillium moved the middle name to the first name. We properly cased all the data, added the missing address information, and for those records, you'll see that Trillium has appended a match ID. So this match ID, there's nothing special or intelligent about this particular match ID. It's just a series of letters and numbers to denote to Dynamics that Trillium believes these records are matches. Also, you'll notice that there's a pattern ID of 100 on one of the records. That means that Anthony matches to Tony with a Trillium pattern ID of 100. 100 is our highest confidence pattern, and what that means is it's the highest confidence match we could find based on looking at name data and address data. And that means that it's also a candidate for automatic merging. So if we go back to our batch job and change our batch type to auto merge. Now, of course, all of this can be scripted together, to run, offline at evenings or low usage hours on the CRM system. But for demo purposes, I like to run the cleansing and matching first, and then run the auto merge step so that you can see really what happens behind the scenes. So we'll click on Run, And what this is going to do is it's going to go out to the CRM system, look for all the records that have the same Trillium match ID and a pattern ID of 100. So I'll go back to my Trillium Active Contacts, and if I search for Bird now, I only have one record. And if I drill into Anthony, what you'll see is that I've merged together these two records, and I've got the email address of Tony from the other record, I've got the phone number that was residing on Anthony, and I also have the activity that was on Tony's record as well. Now, this process bases itself off of matches, high-confidence matches that Trillium finds, and then it literally is calling the Dynamics merge process, so all of the things that you might be used to in terms of the way that records are merged in Dynamics happens here as well. I can go and look at my inactive contacts. There's Tony's record, and you can see that it says that this record was merged with Anthony and then it was deactivated. So that's batch processing. Let's talk about transactional processing. So what we're going to do is we're going to enter in a new record, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up the view with my active contacts and click on New, and we'll go in and we'll enter in some data, and we're misfielding the data and we're entering it all in lowercase because we're in a big hurry. We've got someone on the phone and they're just giving us all the information, and they're trying to get to a point where we can actually get to a pertinent discussion. I may be a call center agent and they've called in, they've got a problem with their system, they're calling for technical support, or they'd like to place an order, but I've got to get this information entered in as quickly as possible. So I want to put in as minimal amount as I can, and I put it all in lowercase and I put it in the incorrect fields, and I save the record. So a couple of things happen. The data is standardized, and there's a duplicate detection screen that comes up. So you'll notice behind the scenes on the left, I had put Mr. Bob in the first name, Albertson in the middle name, and Junior in the last name field. The software properly cased and fielded all of that data for me, appended the missing address information, and then it told me that there is a potential that there are some other duplicates in the system. Now this is our advanced merging screen. As I mentioned earlier, you can have merging capability like what we've got here, or simply kind of a view or a pop-up that's similar to 2011 where you can save or cancel. So as I look at the data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, this is my master record. He said, yeah, you know what, you better use my home address, not my corporate address. And then I can decide if I want to merge these other records. And I can say that I want to grab the salutation from that field, the generational data from that field, and as I move over, I've got a mobile phone on that one and an email on that one. And so I can click on Merge, and this will send out a request to merge that data, processes the data for me, and tells me that the merge process is complete. And if I go back over to my contacts, pretty sure all these records had a last name of Albertson. Search for Albertson. There's my single Robert Albertson, the address that I chose for the master record. I've got an email, a business phone, and a mobile phone. Just like in a batch process, if I go to inactive contacts, there's my other two records that were merged into Robert's record. Okay? So quick demonstration of transactional processing and that merging capability that's available transactionally as well. Now I want to quickly talk about data import. So I've got a bunch of data already in my system, and I've got a list or a file that I want to load in. So I'm just going to use the out-of-the-box data import from Dynamics CRM, and I'm going to point to my sample data and click on Next. And for some reason it passed over where I could pick the data map. Let's see if it works now. Okay, good. All right, all of the columns, headings are matched up now, so I'm ready to load this data set into the system. And what's important to realize is that when you're going through and doing normal things in Dynamics like duplicate detection jobs, or in this case loading data, you're still using dynamic screens, but Trillium functionality is being invoked behind the scenes. So if we were to say, no, I don't want to allow duplicates, then all of the data in this import file is cleansed by Trillium and matched up against the active contacts in my contact entity. And if there are any duplicates found based on Trillium's matching logic, not any out-of-the-box duplicate detection rules that are kind of hard and fast on exact comparison, but Trillium's matching logic, then those records will be halted from loading into the system. If I click yes, then what happens is the records are loaded in. All the records in the import file are loaded in, but they are, of course, given a Trillium match ID so that the user or duplicate detection jobs would know if there are any duplicates that are currently in the system. I'm going to say no, that I want to halt these duplicates from going into the system. I don't want to introduce more duplication than I have to. So I'll click on Submit, and I'm going to bring up my data import status page, and that'll take just a minute to run. While that's running, I'm going to leave that over to the side. I just want to also show you some reports that we have available that we ship as part of our plugin as well. So I'm going to go to my sales reports. And we're going to go down, and you'll notice there are several Trillium software quality reports. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the global view for contacts, and I'm going to run that report. And now what will happen, that report will go out and will give me a view from a global perspective of all of the data in my contact entity. How many records are from the U.S., how many are from Canada, all the different countries that are represented. And then I'll actually be able to drill down on a country-by-country basis and then get a look into the quality of my data. Where are most of my problems focused at? What type of errors do I have? And you can actually hyperlink directly from records in the report, bring up records, and actually reconcile problems that are found directly from in the report. So let's just go into U.S. records. And this tells me things like, there's 9 pages here. Where did I have postal code? You know, what were my match levels for my address validation? How many addresses were validated and or corrected? How many failed on street name? Well, let's take a look at that. There were 6 records that failed, and what I can do now is actually drill down and say, okay, I wonder why that one failed. I can actually click on the record and bring up that particular record and take a look at it. Say, oh, okay, this one failed on the street name because biostatics program number 93 isn't a real street. So if I knew how to correct this record at this time, I could go ahead and make a correction, and that's allowing me to do data maintenance, data stewardship directly from within Dynamics CRM. All right, so let's check on our import job that we kicked off a couple of minutes ago. Let me refresh this view. Okay, the data import job is completed. It was just a small sample file, 36 records. There's 13 successful data record or successes and 23 errors. We can click on the job to get an idea of where those errors occurred or why they happened. And I can look at the failures, and what I see is a listing of all of the records that were not created or updated because a duplicate of the current record already exists. In other words, Charles Flanagan was already in the system, and it tells me the original row IDs of the data in the import file that I was loading in. And again, if I wanted to allow those duplicates to go in, they would simply go in as new contact records, and they would get a match ID denoting that they were possible duplicates, and I could reconcile those one of a couple different ways. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop now. We've got about 10 minutes left. I wanted to make sure, Tony, that we had plenty of time. If there was any questions or comments that anyone had, wanted to make sure we left time for that.
Sounds good, Steve. We do have a couple questions in, and I was intrigued by the out-of-the-box reporting. So that's a standard report that you guys produce that just comes default with your managed plugin?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
That's fun. Someone doesn't have to go in and create an advanced find on any of that. It's just something that's right there already tapping into your contacts. That's nice.
Right. Yep.
Very good. First question is from Debbie Clark. Debbie, good question. They have international salespeople, and Debbie, maybe I could unmute you if you want me to. Let me know if you'd like me to. But you're having a lot of problems with international salespeople using their phones with Outlook and CRM in various countries. Is Trillium capable of helping with phone code standardization?
I think the question probably means phone formatting, and so the answer is yes. So we have scripting languages behind the scenes to understand that in the U.S. if it's an international country it should be +1 parentheses dash 3 digits dash 4 digits. Over in the UK, if you want to use international dialing codes, we understand, okay, you see if it's coming from the US, 01144 for the country code, and then the 4-digit, what we would kind of consider to be an area code for UK numbers as well. So yes, we can absolutely help with those types of scenarios, not just formatting them, but of course using them as part of the matching as well.
Okay, thank you. Yep, Debbie smiled on that one, said yes, phone formatting, perfect, good. Question from TJ. TJ's got a question around if you're using the contact record in the Mocha client, is there any nuances or challenges or anything different about leveraging the Trillium product with the Mocha client and how that works for your data dupe and all your importing and looking at contacts from the Mocha client?
No, not really. It's all for the most part the same. There are some small differences as it relates to what we do on mobile, and from a mobile perspective, it depends on the device. That's really the only area where you'd see some differences. If it's truly what's considered mobile, like a phone, not a tablet, but an actual phone, Microsoft doesn't support the capability to utilize, a pop-up for duplicate detection. So that actually means that there's nothing to tell you that there is a duplicate in the system. However, all of our plug-in capabilities around cleansing the data, parsing it, standardizing, etc., all of that happens. It's just that the matching reconciliation would have to be behind the scenes, maybe back at your desk or something like that. We do support Surface and iPad. The tablets,